Welcome back to the Always Sunny in Hollywood Marathon, presented in fabulous Technicolor, which doesn't really mean a whole lot since this podcast is 98% audio-based, but whatever, it's an intro.
You
My
get to
name is
see
Patrick.
funky waves, though, in the top.
Yeah, funky little waves. So yeah, welcome to It's Always Sunny in Hollywood. Or I guess It's Always Sunny in Pleasantville.
Yeah, let's roll with
I
that.
could have said it's always pleasant in Pleasantville, but that would have been way too obvious.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, my name is Patrick.
I am Red.
And I'm Lugia.
Yes, and today we're stuck in the Pleasantville episode of It's Always Sunny in Hollywood. I love this one.
Yeah. So, let's briefly just talk about some news. So a lot of things that happened this week, but nothing too interesting. But we did get a new trailer for the stop motion Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio movie. So what did you guys think of the trailer?
I have a funny comment. Pinocchio's design, it is interesting that it's veering away from what we typically know of him, like the Disney design.
The Shrek design.
So this is neat. He looks like Spud from Bob the Builder.
I kind of see it, yeah.
He does.
That's immediately what came to my head when I looked. I'm like, oh, it's Spud.
I thought it was, yeah, I think it's like a cool little twist. I guess when he gets turned into a real boy, if that happens, that's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see how his design changes because he's much clearly more wooden here.
I do like the
Um,
stop motion
like, he's-
approach.
he's
I think the movie looks
not
very
even
interesting so far. It looks a hell of a lot better than the other one that came out earlier this year.
Father, how could you say that?
But yeah, it looks promising. I'd probably see it.
So let's journey into Pleasantville. Let's take a trip into Pleasantville for a bit. So, Pleasantville was written and directed by Gary Ross in his directorial debut. Previously, he had been known to write screenplays for movies such as Big, starring Tom Hanks, and
Yeah.
Dave, starring Kevin Kline. And he
You
would go on
definitely-
to...
You can definitely see the big parallels. But yeah, go on.
This was his first film. Like I said, it was his directorial debut. After this, he would go on to direct Seabiscuit, the first Hunger Games, Free State of Jones, and Ocean's 8.
Hey, he also directed The Tale of Despero. No, he wrote The Tale of Despero.
He wrote
The book or the screenplay?
The screenplay.
Okay.
on the cast of Pleasantville. We have quite a cast here. We have Tobey Maguire, Reese Witherspoon, Joan Allen, William H. Macy, Jeff Daniels, J.T. Walsh, Paul Walker, and Don Knotts. Not
And they
bad.
had,
Not bad.
Also, Jane Kazmarek, the mom from Malcolm in the Middle.
She's
She's David's mom.
So all right, in the real world. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a few fun facts about the making of Pleasantville. This was one of the first movies to really use the DI process, the digital intermediate process. And fun fact, at the time of its release, it held the record for the most digital effects in a movie due to all of the color manipulation.
So that's how they did it. Because I was like, when I saw this, I was like, man, this was like before people shot on digital. So I was like, how did they do these like effects? Because like in Sin City, I know they did it because they shot on digital cameras. But like this, I was like, this had to be shot on film. So like, how did
This
they
was
do that?
when?
But,
1998?
yeah. So they did the
So
digital
they filmed
intermediate.
it in
So that's
color,
how they
and
did
then
it.
they went back and digitally made everything black and white.
Yeah.
So
Still,
this- this-
they had to do some impressive like set work because I know like I know when the Coen brothers they directed this one movie in black and white and they also shot it on color, but to make it black and white they had to like do some real like clever stuff with the sets because like the way like things look on color versus black and white is kind of different and looks kind of muddy, so you have to put in a lot of work to make black and white look good if you're not shooting on black and white stock. So
Even then, a filter isn't really going to get you far.
yeah, so that they did some real impressive shit here filming
Yeah,
wise.
This was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I think it
Oh,
still
man.
holds up.
Mhm.
We're getting
Yeah,
ahead of
there's
ourselves.
Yeah,
there's
okay.
a lot of really
But
great
yeah.
shots. Yeah. I mean,
Anyway.
why not? We can talk about like the movies before we get talk
I
about
know,
the
but
movie.
I don't have a
Yeah.
whole lot about its production. I just have a few main things, so I'll just breeze through that. Another fun fact is that the TV repairman was originally named Rob, and he was going to be played by Dick Van Dyke as a tribute to the character he played in the Dick Van Dyke Show. Though in the final movie, he's just referred to as TV repairman, and he's played by Don Knotts. This was also the final movie that J.T. Walsh appeared in. He played Big Bob. and it was dedicated in his memory. This movie is also dedicated in memory to director Gary Ross's mother and the film's second assistant cameraman, Brent Hirschman. And his death actually stirred some controversy. The short of it is what happened was he died falling asleep driving home from a day of filming. And it's reported that the film's lengthy work schedule is what caused his death because he had been working 15-hour shifts for days straight. And the night he died, he was returning from a 19-hour day.
God. Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, and since his death, there have been pushes in the industry to fight for shorter work schedules. It's still being fought today, but it can kind of be traced back to this. And actually, this event resulted in the creation of a documentary called Who Needs Sleep, which talks about sleep deprivation in the film industry. So that's unfortunately a tragic event that happened during the film's production. But back onto more lighthearted events. Prior to the movie's release, they held a contest that would allow the winner the choice to either take a trip to a real-life town of Pleasantville, Ohio, or accept a $10,000 cash prize. The anonymous winner chose the cash prize.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Anyway, Pleasantville released in 1998, and on a budget of $60 million, it made $49.8 million. It was not a financial hit at all. But it was well received by critics, and it even received 3 Oscar nominations, being Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, and Best Original Score. So, not bad.
And I know it probably did well on the home video market.
Yeah, it's gained a cult following in recent years.
I guess let's get into our thoughts. So,
A plot.
Oh, yeah, sure.
A plot that's kind of important. Anyway, all right, so here's a synopsis of Pleasantville. Pleasantville is about David and Jennifer, 2 teenage siblings who are transported from their 90s high school life into the fictional TV show Pleasantville, after they're given a brand new TV remote by a mysterious repairman. With no way of getting out, they decide to live out the reruns of the show as best they can. But when they start breaking the conventions of the town by doing and showing things that weren't commonplace on television in the 50s, the world slowly starts to turn into Technicolor. It's a cute premise, but there's actually a lot more to it. Because as the movie goes on, it delves into various themes, including racism, religion, change, censorship, nostalgia. There's a lot of subtext here. So, let's get into it.
All right.
So I guess we already gushed about how we thought, the movie looked good, but
overall?
So I guess my overall thoughts on the movie is
thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, so I really, really enjoyed it. It was pretty charming and surprisingly very funny. The beginning I thought was a bit irritating. It didn't immediately grab me, but once it starts getting to the swing of things, it's a lot of fun. The commentary I thought was it was kind of funny because it's a bit ham-fisted, but the movie's so kind of over the top and corny. It just kind of fits. It doesn't feel I feel like there are some movies that try to do commentary in a similar way and it doesn't work well, but here it oddly connects. And I think it's kind of funny how they did a movie about race, but with an all-white cast, but
That just goes to show you how stupid racism is when these white people, these Caucasian people are discriminating against other Caucasian people who just happen to be in Technicolor. You see how ridiculous that is?
Yeah.
And somehow the whole no colored sign makes a degree of sense in a different light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, so we talked about the color effects, which are all cool. I really liked it, some of the shots where it's all black and white except for one character. But the camera angles I thought were really good too. They had this sort of exaggerated camera angles and lenses at times, and I thought it added
the
a
use
lot.
of Dutch angles in certain scenes.
Yeah, and some of the more exaggerated shots. So yeah, overall really enjoyed it.
I want to hear your thoughts, Lugia.
Well, pardon the pun, this was a very pleasant surprise. It definitely was a slow burner at first. The beginning didn't really grab me as much, and even when they get into the TV, I'm like, oh, okay, so they're just taking place of other characters, and they're just gonna try to figure out how to get out of here. That's fine. That didn't really grab me. And then color started coming into the world, and how the actions of David and Jen affect that world was what hooked me. I mean, Jen teaches her fictional mother sex, if I could put it one way, and then she just becomes full of color like that.
This movie has a lot of sex jokes.
Yeah.
Actually, upon rewatch, I'm kind of surprised my parents let me watch this when I was younger.
What was this rated?
Movie,
R?
PG-13.
No.
Okay.
Actually, I have a funny story about this movie. One of the first times I watched it, the scene after the date when Skip is driving home and he sees the rose that's colored red, and then a few scenes later, Bud at a distance is seeing him talking to a bunch of guys in the gymnasium from a distance. When I was younger, one of the first times I watched this movie, I said, "Oh, he's probably telling them about the weird flower he saw," and my dad said, "I think he's telling them about something a lot more interesting than the flower."
That's one way of putting it.
I was innocent then. Also, the bathtub scene. My young mind thought it was just because she had never taken a hot bath before, and the heavy breathing was because of the heat of the water. That's how my mind interpreted things when I was like 10.
Listen, I understand. I understand completely. Okay, you're not at fault for thinking that when you were that old, but like, wow.
But no,
Speaking of bathroom scene, here's a review from one of my friends. I can read it out loud if you want, but just look in the chat.
Yeah, read it out loud because obviously the audience isn't going to hear it.
Yeah.
Or see
Good
it.
thing a tree. Okay, so one of my friends wrote this on Letterboxd. Good thing a tree doesn't catch fire every time I jerk off, or else the Pacific Northwest would have burned to the ground a long time ago.
That's actually kind of what I was. I wonder if there's any parent out there who just said, "And that's how forest fires start."
Yeah.
But no, I love this movie. It's one of my favorites. Ever since I was younger, I was always captivated by the unique visual style of a black and white world slowly becoming color. And actually, I was able to pick up on a lot of the commentary at a young age too. Granted, a lot of it isn't subtle, but no, even some of the less obvious stuff, I was actually able to pick up on.
Performance-wise, the real standout was oddly Jeff Daniels and Joan Allen. Where I was
Who'd
like,
they
huh.
play?
They played
the soda clerk and the mother.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, obviously, Toby and Reese Witherspoon did pretty good. I found it interesting that Toby and Paul Walker, I found to have I was surprised by how good their range was because I've seen them in their big blockbuster franchise movies, but they don't really need to have they don't need that much range here. But here, I see a bit more I don't know, emoting. Paul Walker's character is just kind of this cartoony sort of thing, but it's still I don't know. I thought the performance worked really well, which I thought he was kind of stiff in the Fast and Furious movies. Toby's good in Spider-Man, but here he's got a bit more of an energy to him, which I liked.
He's a more excited Peter Parker, if you could put it one way.
Yeah. Basically feels like Peter Parker, his main personality trait was that he was a complete dork and not he wasn't constantly suffering and poor and his life was shit.
And he's also a god at basketball.
Honestly, so many little things in this movie have constantly stuck out to me.
The basketball jokes cracked me up a lot.
Oh, when he misses the shot, everybody's like, "Don't touch the ball, don't touch it."
Yeah, and then later when he tells everyone what sex is, and they all miss at once, I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. Also, their geography class.
Also, how they the first time we see him and they're all just getting the shots, and I was like, man, I wonder how many takes it took for them to nail that.
Also, their geography class is just the end of Main Street. It's just the beginning again. I say that all the time when somebody asks me what's at the end of something. I say it's just the beginning again. Not wrong.
It's an endless loop and you can't escape. Welcome to purgatory.
Also, one more thing. When David is telling the firemen about the fire and they have no idea what he's talking about, and then he says cat and they jump up into uniform.
Oh, that was so good.
Great.
Yeah, so
and when they get to the scene, they're they see the fire, but they're like, "Where's the cat?"
Yeah, had a lot of good over the top funny gags and stuff. Also Reese Witherspoon's arc, because I didn't find her particularly likable at the start, but basically this once she starts messing with Paul Walker's character Skip, and from then on her character's just kind of great. Real highlight. Same with Tobey Maguire's arc. I think both their characters, I didn't like them at the start, but their arcs made them a lot more likable, and I actually really grew to I liked them a lot by the end. I thought they were pretty great.
I found David's relationship with the soda clerk to be one of the more heartwarming ones, where he gives him the art book, which inspires him to create art, which alternatively fucks over how the show is run, but at the same time, it's like, damn it, I want to see this guy make some good-ass paintings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find like their characters interesting because like at the start, I was kind of like annoyed by both, but like I could both see like their point of view because I was like, all right, like David, maybe there's nothing wrong with like having too much change, but then like Reese, I was like, all right, play along a little, but then like they kind of find this little sort of happy medium, and I was like, oh, that's good.
So
Ending was a bit weird with how
The ending is the one part of this movie that I don't fully love. Because what always confused me is that David goes back to the real world, but Jennifer stays to get an education in Pleasantville.
yeah, and I
That
was
always-
like
that
wondering
always-
how does
always
that kind of
confused me.
work, and I was like,
That doesn't really make like what
Yeah.
does the mother have to say? Like
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
was kinda
That's the one thing that always stood out to me as that doesn't make sense.
yeah. But again, it's just it's not that.
It's a minor thing.
doesn't
You
affect
could
that much,
you could
so,
ask
yeah.
you could ask other questions about like where the repairman came from or how he got the remote. I don't care about
Or the
that.
fact that the repairman was like, "Man, these reruns are like changing." Does that mean like makes me wonder? It's like,
what happens to
do
the
other people's
legacy?
copies?
Yeah.
Does other people's copies of Pleasantville getting altered? And
do
like,
they
"Man, I
see
don't
the show
remember."
the way that David and Jen are interacting with the world?
Yeah, it does leave some questions, but I can overlook a lot of that since everything else
Yeah.
is so good.
Yeah.
It's like the ending of Spirited Away. Like, there's some questions to raise, but it doesn't like matter. Yeah, overall, thought it was a pretty good time. Recommend 2 thumbs up.
Also, one other thing is that this movie also kind of used to freak me out when I was a kid because when David and Jennifer first get transported into Pleasantville and they're talking to the repairman through the TV, that always freaked me out because it's the combined close-up shots and the black and white with their terrified faces. That always freaked me out when I was younger, and that's one of the very first scenes in the movie. I've always found black and white to make things kind of scary. So
All
I
right.
guess this is where it started.
I guess
Get
one
ready
of these
for our
days
next movie, Psycho.
Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna have to show you a Eraserhead or something.
Why there are a lot of black and white close-ups.
Yeah, and it's also a David Lynch horror movie. So like David Lynch horror, black and white, it's gonna fuck you up, man.
Maybe.
Listen, we already
with
saw
that,
one in color, and that one was pretty fucked up.
Yeah,
No, I love this movie.
yeah,
Yeah, this was
So,
really good.
yeah. So a couple movies it reminded me of that I'd recommend. These are all high concept movies that kind of explore the 50s. There's Truman Show, Back to the Future, and Peggy Sue Got Married. If you like Pleasantville, I think you'd like all 3 of those. So check them out.
I got a few things too.
Yeah, especially Peggy Sue Got Married because that one's pretty underrated. But yeah,
Yeah, Back to the Future is a movie that came to mind because of, modern person teaching a 50s town.
Yep.
Also, funny you bring up Truman Show because this movie was actually compared to Truman Show when it first came out.
That
I
makes
mean,
sense because they came out like
same
the same
year.
year, right?
Yeah.
And
That
Truman Show
also-
was like a huge hit,
Mhm.
Jim Carrey.
Also, obviously, WandaVision, because that took a lot of inspiration from Pleasantville with the sitcom style.
Right.
Pleasantville.
I forgot about that.
WandaVision goes further by going decade by decade, where Pleasantville is just 50s.
Yeah.
Also, The Giver, the book The Giver.
Yes, because of the black and white color thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, the
forgot
movie
about
does that, but the book also has this whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Although
similar-
the
similar
twist in the
grasp.
book is like crazy because like being the book, you don't even realize that everything's black and white to them.
Also, To Kill a Mockingbird came to mind because of the race commentary.
Yeah,
I
and
can see
also
that.
it takes place in the 50s, so yeah.
Two other
Yeah,
movies that these are kind of out there, but Free Guy, actually. I remember when I saw Free Guy, Pleasantville kind of came to mind because there's a scene where he's in the coffee shop, and instead of ordering as usual, he wants something else, and everybody in the coffee shop starts to freak out.
Mm.
That just reminded me of Pleasantville for some reason.
Yeah, and Free Guys is a lot of people compared it to Truman Show, so it's all connected.
Also, one other movie, Jingle All the Way.
How?
You know why?
Put the cookie down.
Yes, those are not your cookies,
Oh.
bud. That's another
Of
line
course.
that's another line that's stuck with me throughout the years. But yeah, so check those out if you like Pleasantville.
All right, so it is my
Your
turn to
turn, yeah.
recommend?
That it is.
All right. So I had two possible ideas for it. One I wasn't super sure because it also took sort of place in suburbia, but my two options they're both intended to be double features, but in both of them we are going to explore a director that we've already talked about before. So let me just tell you the previous directors. So do you want to revisit Park Chan-wook and The Handmaiden, or do you want to revisit the Coen brothers?
I'd say Coen Brothers.
Uh,
All right.
are you going to tell
What
us
about
the
you?
movies first, or do you want us to choose the director first?
I'm choosing the director, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Coen Brothers, why not?
All right, so my idea for the double feature is Fargo, directed by the Coen brothers, and A Simple Plan, directed by Sam Raimi, with help from the Coen brothers, because I think these are two similar yet very different movies, and I think it'd be interesting to sort of compare them, especially given how close the relationship between the directors are.
Is there one
Fargo
that you'd
and
recommend
A
watching
Simple Plan?
first?
I guess I'd recommend Fargo first, just because that's the classic. That's the one that everyone knows. When
Alright,
A Simple
gotcha.
Plan is the lesser known from. Also, Fargo came out
I've
first.
never heard of A Simple Plan.
Exactly. That's why it's a movie. So since I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan, I was like, oh, I'm gonna check this one out, and I absolutely loved it. And I was like, how does no one not know more about this movie? Because it was so similar to Fargo, which is a classic, I was like, huh, interesting. Um,
All right, I'm
so
down.
yeah,
Okay.
Simple Plan and Fargo. And I'm not gonna tell you what the other ones were, just because I do intend to talk about those in the future. So we'll see 'em.
So you're taking a cue from me, keeping it a secret.
Yes.
All right, I dig.
But yeah.
So
So next week we're going to explore a different side of suburbia, I guess, with the Simple Plan and Fargo.
So this has been It's Always Sunny in Hollywood. This does unfortunately mean it's the end of the episode, but don't worry, because the end of the episode is just the beginning again.